welcome to another session with WeCARE's WeServe as we partner with Healing Hearts to Heal. I am the founder of Healing Hearts to Heal's CEO, Ayana Meeks, which was founded in September of 2021. I currently hold a master's degree in educational counseling. And I am so excited about today's session, which is going to be a recap of the last 3 sessions of this quarter. So glad you joined us. Please like and share the information if you find it valuable today. I hope that you all enjoyed the recap. And please feel free to go back and look at some of our other sessions to get a more deeper in-depth information of all of the material that's covered today. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen this morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, wonderful. Hopefully you guys can all see that. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing PowerPoint. And once again, this session is on personal development. And this will be a recap. This will be a recap of the last 3 sessions that we've covered. And again, I'm so excited to share this information with you. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I know I do not have very much time this morning. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So in our first session, we covered developing interpersonal skills. And we're going to talk about why this is so very important. So what does interpersonal skills mean? According to the American Psychological Association, APA, interpersonal skills are behaviors we use to interact with people in groups and individually. These can encompass the following: communication, leadership, empathy, negotiation, resolving conflict, and then also teamwork. So for the sake of time, and because this is just a recap of the information that we covered in the full session, we're only going to look at the first 3: communication, leadership, and then we're going to look at empathy. All right, so communication. All right, so the definition: the ability to communicate effectively with others, whether verbal or nonverbal, may not come naturally to each person, and several factors can go into becoming a better communicator. Okay. Communication can include real-life conversations, written or printed material, body language, and your ability to listen to another person to understand their point of view. All right. Also under communication, I love this. We're talking about assuming versus understanding. And some of us can attest to times when we've assumed something and we got it all wrong, right? So this slide is talking about the difference between the two. And so how you express yourself can increase or decrease the possibility of miscommunication and potential disagreements. Speaking to others as clearly and concisely as possible, and, if necessary, conveying your feelings and respectfully providing your opinions are often critical points to establishing healthy communication. Once you've expressed yourself, allowing your listener to ask questions or request additional clarity can be beneficial. And this is so important because anytime that we're communicating, we really want to be in a position for the person to be able to get clarity in what we're saying. Part of effective communication is also being a good listener. Okay? A lot of times, and we hear this often, a lot of times we are listening to give a response. And so if we're doing that, then we're not really effectively listening to what the other person is trying to convey to us. So These points in this slide are very, very, very important that, again, speaking to others as clearly and concisely as possible. And a lot of times I tell people, I do communicate, I talk a little slower, I talk a little bit clearer, and it's not because I'm trying to downplay the person's intelligence. It's just that I'm thinking as I'm speaking, making sure that I'm saying the right proper words, making sure that I'm clear in what I'm trying to communicate to the other person. So I do, even make that statement that I'm not trying to, lower your intelligence. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm communicating clearly and that I don't jumble things up, and that we both walk away with a clear understanding. Okay. Another point there, excuse me, is conveying your feelings and respectfully providing your opinions are often critical points to establishing healthy communication. And I want to make sure that we point that out, is that we want to be communicating in a healthy manner. Okay. And then once you've expressed yourself, then allowing the listener to be able to ask questions or request additional clarity if they need it. Okay, super important. The next thing we looked at was leadership skills. When you're talking about developing those interpersonal skills. So one, strong communication, okay, the ability to communicate. Then also the ability to lead, okay, having those leadership skills, right? So effective leadership may involve developing a solution or plan based on a plan based on understanding a social situation. You may take the first steps to becoming an effective leader by improving your decision-making skills and learning healthy persuasion. Okay. The ability to persuade others effectively is not based on power or control. Instead, it refers to using forms of communication to explain to others why your decision, idea, or the course of action that you took is the best possible, encouraging them to reach an informed conclusion. People who are healthy in persuading others try not to use positions of power to scare others into agreeing with them. Instead, they may present the information in a way that naturally points to one conclusion. So again, in order to be a persuasive leader, right? Getting everybody on the same page, getting everybody kind of on the same team, getting everybody to kind of embrace the idea, skills of persuasion. Remember, it's not based on power or control. You're not trying to bully somebody into siding with you. You're not trying to scare somebody into embracing your idea. So very important that this is an ability of a leader, right? When you're presenting an idea to somebody, maybe there's multiple ideas on the table. And so as a good leader, you're able to pull out all of the ideas, you're able to pull out the strong points in those ideas. And then you're also able to pull those ideas together, okay? Come up with the best course of action, and then encourage people to reach an informed conclusion. Okay, it takes a lot of skill to be able to do that. All right. All right, the next skill that we talked about under the whole umbrella of interpersonal skills is empathy. Okay, so when we want to talk about what is empathy, okay, the American Psychological Association defines empathy as understanding a person from their frame of reference rather than vicariously expressing that person's feelings, perceptions, and thoughts. Developing empathy often happens over time, and some people first experience it in childhood. When you can attempt to understand a situation from another's point of view, regardless of whether you agree with them, you might understand where they're coming from with more ease. So this is a wonderful skill to have, is to be empathetic, to be able to place yourself in another person's shoes. I use this particular visual on this slide because it really is seeing things from the lens of another person. A lot of times we can make our assumptions, which we talked about a couple of slides back, and we can get it all wrong. But the ability to be able to see something from another person's point of view, regardless of whether you agree with them or not, but you can see understand what they're saying, right? And so we've all been in situations like that where somebody has said something and you're like, you know what, I don't really agree with that, but I can see where you are coming from. I can see why that made you upset. I don't understand why it made you upset, but I can see why it made you upset. So being able to understand that piece, and I feel like when you are able to do that, look at something from another point of view, it can kind of bring some correction to you. It gives you another perspective to look at things, and it lets you understand that, hey, there are two perspectives to everything. It's not just your perspective and what you think. Okay. The ability to pick up on subtle nuances in body language could also help you develop empathy. Crossing of the arms, sudden stiffness, or averting eye contact may indicate that the individual isn't receptive or in agreement with the point. If you can pick up on these signs, you may steer the conversation in a healthier direction. It's so important. Communication is not just being able to listen with our ears, but it's also being able to listen with our eyes, listen, and seeing what is happening in the conversation. Clearly we can look at this picture here of this woman and this man. They're having a conversation. He's got his hands over his eyes. Obviously, they're in a deep conversation. What could that mean? It could mean frustration. It could mean, embarrassment. It could mean so many different things. And so when we are communicating, it's so important that we pay attention to the body language of what the other person, the body language of the other person, excuse me, because in that way we can know how to steer the conversation. Clearly in this particular picture, if I was in her position, I don't know what's going on here, but clearly like he's overwhelmed, this is a lot. And this may be a time to just go silent. Maybe this is a break time. It's overwhelming. He needs a moment to get his thoughts together. Maybe I just need to stop where I'm at and let him process what has been said. Okay, so it's so important that we have that type of empathy, right? Again, putting yourself in the other person's shoes, okay? Maybe the person has become disinterested. Maybe this is just too hard of a conversation for this person to have, okay? So if you can pick up on these signs, then you can, if it's going wrong, maybe it's heightening, the tone is changing, the body language is getting more tense. It will give us a signal that, hey, I need to steer this conversation in a more healthier direction because this is not going to work. Because once all of these emotions and feelings of frustration all get involved, then we begin to not listen, okay? And then the communication can become very strained, okay? All right. So then in session 2, we began to talk about how to effectively resolve conflict. And it's so fitting that this would be next because when we're trying to learn how to communicate, sometimes it's not as healthy as we would like. And so it sometimes can lead into conflict, okay? Especially when we're talking about families, friends, all the dynamics, right? And so we're going to dive into that today. All right, so first, I always love definitions. I am such a word girl. And so I feel like I read the definition, it begins to put things into perspective for me. All right, so according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, there are several definitions for conflict. Number 1, fight, battle, war is considered an armed conflict. Okay. 2, Under A, competitive or opposing action of incompatibles. Antagonistic state of action is a conflict of principles. B, mental struggle resulting from incompatible or opposing needs, drives, wishes, or external or internal demands is a conflict of conscience. And then number 3, the opposition of of persons or forces that gives rise to the dramatic action in a drama or fiction. So that's not talking about, like reading, like what we're watching, like a movie or something of that sort. And then these definitions are based on the noun form of the word conflict. Now let's look at the verb form. All right, so what does the conflict in verb form mean? Conflict simply means to be different, opposed, or contradictory. To fail to be in agreement or accord. This will be the definition that will be our focus today. Okay, so let's look at conflict. All right, so conflict has been seen as an opportunity. Conflict, can be seen as an opportunity. And so I put like, how, Ms. Ayana, how can conflict be seen as an opportunity? So yes, conflict is a natural part of the human experience. Conflict is not wrong or bad. It does not mean you are failing. Conflict shines a light on something that is not working. So use this opportunity to learn about yourself and others. I always like to say that sometimes healthy conflict is needed, that conflict is necessary sometimes. Otherwise, we won't know what the problem is. We won't even know that there's a problem if the conflict does not come up, okay? So people deal with conflict in different ways. Therefore, you need different conflict resolution strategies. It's not a one size fits all when you're dealing with conflict, okay? We will explore how conflict affects us as humans and how to effectively resolve conflict. So we're not going to dive as deep into this as I did in the session. So again, I'm always going to put a plug back in. Please go back and I'll share some information for those of you who may be new to our sessions, especially under WeSERVE Cares. I'll give you that information at the end of this presentation today. So if you want to go back and you want to look at some of our previous sessions, please, by all means, go back and look at those sessions. I would love for you to have that information and then to share it. The other is that we're gonna explore how conflict affects us as humans and how to effectively resolve it. Okay, I think I said that. I do apologize if that was a repeat. Okay, so let's look at relationship conflict and what is it. Okay, so relationship conflict is a disagreement between people, partners, friends, siblings, coworkers. The root of the conflict might be something like a difference of opinion, experience, a difference in taste, perspective, personality, and or beliefs, okay? Conflict is generally intense enough to disrupt some aspect of the relationship, such as communication, which is what differentiates it from simply having a different point of view, okay? It is not just romantic partners who can experience conflicted relationships. Families can also be in conflict, okay? Some of us can raise our hand to that, okay? Whether it's an open debate over dinner or an underlying feeling of discomfort that remains unspoken, family conflict can cause a significant amount of stress. It might be that there's no lack of love between members, it might be that there's no lack of love between members, but rather a lack of comfort in dealing with the conflict. So it's not that we don't love one another. It's just that a lack of comfort in dealing with the conflict. Not everybody's comfortable in conflict. It can, especially if it's unhealthy. It's drawn out, it's long, people are yelling, Nobody's listening. It feels like you're in a hamster wheel. You're, going in circles. It can be very, very, very intense. And some people don't do well in those types of environments. Okay. So dealing with conflict is not easy. Okay. And it's not comfortable for everybody. And let me just throw this little tidbit out there, that just because somebody is comfortable in dealing with conflict does not mean that they're conflictual. Okay. And a lot of times people think that, like, oh, they just love conflict. They just like to get in it. No, they just happen to be one that doesn't mind conflict because they know that healthy conflict is going to end to a resolution. That is the end goal. Okay. All right, so conflict. While it can be difficult and uncomfortable, conflict in a relationship is not always a bad thing. When it is healthy and productive, relationship conflict presents an opportunity for people to learn about how others see and experience the world. It can also generate creative solutions to problems and help people grow. Okay, when we can begin to bring things to the surface, we get into a long, drawn out just conflict. Maybe two people stop talking. Maybe two people, may separate. And then all these things begin to come up. And then it's like things come up to the surface that you never even thought was there. And then you can begin to have this healthy, productive conversation about, well, I didn't know you were feeling that way. Well, I didn't know you were feeling that way. Well, I didn't know this person, how we allowed that person to get involved in the situation. And they didn't really need to be involved in the situation. And so when we begin to discuss and have, and have conflict, and we begin to open up some things and we begin to discuss some things, sometimes we find that things that we thought were true really weren't true. Right? And so the things that really weren't true were true. So it allows us this kind of healthy and productive way to solve conflict in our relationships, okay? So however, when conflict is not productive or healthy, it can be harmful to everyone involved. Sustained unresolved conflict can create tension at home or at work. It can erode the strength and satisfaction of the relationship and can even make people feel physically sick or pain. Interesting, okay? So in relationship conflict, again, this is just a recap, but please, I'm going to implore you to go back and look at some of the other sessions, especially this one on resolving conflict in relationships. So relationship conflict is not the same as abuse. So I made sure I put this slide in the recap. If your partner or whoever you're with is physically or emotionally abusive, whether in the presence of a conflict or not, there are resources that you can turn to for help. So one of those resources is the National Domestic Violence Hotline. The number is there, 1-800-799-7233. For confidential assistance from trained advocates, okay? And then for more information for mental health resources, you can see the National Helpline database, okay? And that's going to give you some resources if you're happen to be dealing with mental health issues, which a lot of times is connected with the domestic violence. They also, get like a dual assistance with the mental health piece too. Okay. All right. So we talked about how, unhealthy conflict can oftentimes make us sick. So conditions associated with chronic stress is acne, anxiety disorders, burnout, depression, diabetes, digestive issues such as diarrhea, constipation, ulcers. They didn't put IBS in here, but that could also kind of be clumped in there because that particular disease is stress triggered a lot of times, okay? Hair loss is one of them. Heart disease is another. Hypothyroidism is another. Insomnia, not being able to sleep is one. Obesity, and then sexual dysfunction or changes in your libido. And then the lastly is tooth and gum disease, okay, also known as periodontal, all right? So listen to all of this, how unhealthy conflict, if it's constant and it's ongoing and you're exposed to it constantly, it can cause you to become very ill, okay? That's how powerful it is. And that's how much we want the peace and joy and all those things in our lives and being able to do this in a healthy way, okay? All right, then in session 3, we talked about creating healthy relationships, okay? So let's take a look at that. So definition of relationship, the way in which two or more concepts, objects, or people are connected, or the state of being connected. The state of being connected by blood or marriage, and then the way in which two or more people or groups regard and behave toward each other. Okay, so that's relationship. Okay, so in our session, in this third session, we looked at just 3 types of relationships. There are many different types of relationships. This section is going to focus, excuse me, that's a typo. I did have 4, but we focused on 3 of types of relationships. And the first one is family relationships, friendships, acquaintanceships, and then romantic relationships. And I think I narrowed it down. I might have clumped friendships and acquaintanceships together, okay? Even though they could definitely possibly be 2 different categories. All right, so let's look at the type 1 family, okay? So family relationship, you have your parents, you have siblings, you have your aunts, you have your uncles, cousins, grandparents, adopted family, and then in-laws, okay? So that's kind of like your family, the blood family, okay? All right. Then we have type 2, which is friendship. So in this category, you have a couple of subcategories, right? So you have a best friend. This is the person who simply just gets you the ability to flex and endure when life gets in the way. So this is your best friend. No matter what's going on in your life, it don't matter how many years have gone by. Maybe you don't talk every day. Maybe y'all talk every 6 months, or maybe y'all talk, once or twice a year, or maybe once a year. Maybe years go by and you just kind of get caught up in life, and then you call each other and hey, you pick up right back where you left off. Like you didn't skip a beat. The last conversation you had, you begin to pick that thing right back up where it was. And so that right there is your best friend. You can confide it, anything in her, it's not going to be told to the world. She's going to hold it. And so what a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing it is to have a best friend. Okay? Then you have what we consider a close friend. One you can reach out for support, okay? Those are close friends. They kind of get you, but kind of not as much as the best friend, right? Okay. Then you have your friend, people that you socialize with regularly. Those are maybe the people that you see at school, if I'm talking to some young people, okay? Those people that you see at work every day. Hey, girl, hey, girl. Hey, Daryl. Oh, hey, hey, Ayana. Okay, those are those people, close friends. Hey, girl, I called you. This may be your work friend. I need you to, can you take me to the grocery store? My car is like on low gas and I'm trying to preserve it for tomorrow. Hey, you reach out for some support, okay? Hey, I need to, do something after work. Do you mind watching, my son until I can get back? That kind of stuff. That's your close friends, okay? Then you have just a friend. These are people that you socialize with regularly. These are your, hey, hi type of people. You don't really have to sit down with them. We don't have a whole get to know them session. We don't look to them for the ability to flex and endure when life gets hard, okay? However, these can be, some people, some friends can be people that you can depend on and that you can, get support from. Then you have your acquaintance. These are people we know well enough to make small talk with on a regular basis, but not invite to a party or call if we need assistance. So acquaintances are just the people that you may see around school. You may see them around work, but you kind of don't really say anything. You just kind of see them. Okay, you don't have a solid friendship or best friend relationship with them. Okay. All right. So also in type 3 is romantic relationships. So I don't really have to explain too much of this, but I'll go ahead and read this. So a romantic relationship is one in which you feel very strongly attracted to the other person, both to their personality and often also physically. This is reciprocated by the other person in the relationship. A romantic relationship is that which exists between a boyfriend and a girlfriend, or spouses in a marriage, or life partners in a civil partnership or long-term unmarried relationship. Okay. So what are some characteristics of a healthy relationship? And this is so important. I work in a middle school. I am a middle school counselor, and I deal with relationship issues. I deal with romantic relationships. Yes, romantic relationships in middle school. I also deal with family relationships, teacher-student relationships, all of the things, right? So I see this stuff on a regular basis, okay? So characteristics of a healthy relationship: honest and vulnerable, mutual respect, trust, forgiveness, and communication. Now, again, for the sake of time, this is just a recap. So please, please, please feel free to go back onto the WeSERVE Cares site, and you can find the videos there. You can find the sessions there, and go back and view some of those sessions when we dive a little bit deeper into these sessions here. Okay. So characteristics of a healthy relationship: honest and vulnerable, mutual respect, trust, forgiveness, and there goes communication again. Communication is super, super, super important. Okay. So what does an unhealthy relationship look like? We always start with, I want to know what a healthy one looks like. Well, let's see what an unhealthy one looks like. So in an unhealthy relationship, you're going to have lack of communication, lack of empathy, abuse, verbal, physical, mental, emotional, and sexual abuse will be present, okay? Lack of intimacy, drug or alcohol abuse, lack of emotional support. The person is being dishonest, the person is being controlling. The disrespect, you're going to have disrespect in an unhealthy relationship. Excessive expectation that nobody can meet, right? Sometimes even the one expecting it can't even meet the expectation. And then breaking of boundaries, okay? So those are just a few. All right, if you find yourself in a situation where you are in an unhealthy relationship, please do not stay in that. You can seek help. So if you text HOME to 741-741 to connect with a volunteer crisis counselor, they are there 24 hours of the day. And they cover certain parts of the world, as you can see, the United States, California, the UK, and Ireland, okay? Also, there's a 24/7 confidential crisis support line for veterans and their loved ones. So you're going to text 838-255, or you're going to dial 988, then press 1. Also, if you have veterans in your family and you guys are dealing with a tough situation with them, you can always reach out to them on their website, which is www.veteranscrisisline.net. Okay. And then seek professional counseling, whether it's individual, whether it's couple, or family therapy. It is so important. I know some families and some cultures find it's almost like a taboo for you to go to get counseling, but I love how we've seen this push in mental health since COVID, that, hey, when people came, we were slowly coming out of COVID, people were not okay. While we were in COVID, we saw really that people were not okay. As far as how to deal with things, how to cope with situations, how to, seek out help when things are not right with you. So this is super, super important because we can't do this thing on our own. We cannot solve conflict. We cannot live in healthy conflict by ourselves. Some of us need that assistance and that support to get through those moments, okay? All right, so that wraps up our presentation, guys. I hope that this was something that was said, that was, needed and useful and helpful. Even if you're sharing it with a young person, the information is there for them too. Like I said, I'm a middle school counselor, and so that's grades, ages 11, 12, 13, and some of our 14-year-olds that are getting ready to, who are in 8th grade, getting ready to go off to high school. So this information is for them as well, okay? Ways to reach us. So again, I'm Miss Ayana Meeks of Healing Hearts to Heal. My website is still under construction, but I am available by email. If you want to send an email to healingheartstoheal@gmail.com, I'm more than welcome to answer any questions that you may have. And then CEO, and founder of WeCARE, Eugene McCowan. And then to learn more about WeSERVE's WeCARE program, you can visit WeServeVA.org for more information. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And again, thank you so much, Pastor McCowan, again, for partnering with Healing Hearts to Heal as we begin to bring you more information on personal development. I look forward to this partnership for many years to come as we reach more and more in the community. Thank you so much again for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day. Blessings to you.